Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. So, finally, looks like maybe getting a stream to work this morning, which, cool. So, yeah, getting on a little later than I would have anticipated this morning, but that's okay. Good morning again. Yeah, good morning. So, yeah, we'll cover a couple things, but right now, kind of looking in this area of the chart. Let's put a little magnifying glass like this guy. Kind of looking down there. Good morning, Steve. All right, so let's flip this around a little bit. Don't need that. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. All right, so pretty much, I don't really need that for the moment. Yeah, so getting all squared away. What was that, Friday? What was that, Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday. So last week, Wednesday, for those of you that may have been with us on this stream, last week, Wednesday, we had left, obviously, for Thanksgiving, and that was the recommended buy point for the market. So on Wednesday, market sold off all day, well, for the most part, and then bounced late afternoon. So we talked about watching the market long bias here on Wednesday, right at about that 50 SMA location. So if we flip this over to, say, a 5-minute chart, yeah, that works. We could do 5 minute. So a 5-minute chart. So right there. Oops, sorry. Oop, there we go. Yeah, you can see that pretty good. So that was a recommended long point from Friday. Right there. All right, so that's done okay. And so there was a couple reasons for that. That was mainly because you're coming into some over under 50 SMA support on the market, and then you also were coming into some resistance on the volatility index. So using both markets to kind of time up that scenario is mainly what we were looking at on Wednesday. Unfortunately, yeah, I can bring up the VIX, but it's going to be a little delayed. Let's see, is it this guy here? Yeah. All right, so, and this isn't even, it's not as accurate on TradingView. For some reason, the volatility index always looks it just doesn't really work here on TradingView. I also don't pay for their live data stuff here, so maybe that's part of it, but because they use other platforms for that. But anyways, main point being, ready, 1 second, I'm just going to highlight this area with a box. So I'm going to highlight that box. All right, so if you see 30-minute scale, VIX down, pops into 50 SMA trend, stays bearish, goes down. So basically what we did on Wednesday was we basically kind of took the volatility index to a back test of its breakdown. So market gets broken down on the VIX, so volatility is decreasing in the market and volatility is downtrending. That's the back test of the downtrend and attempt of, because at the time, right, when you're back testing it, it's like, is it going to reject? If so, that will confirm and keep the market and volatility downtrending, right? And then as a result, you would assume that the market would go up, right? So if we flip back to the SPY, we can do it just opposite. So we're going to focus our attention right here, that little box. And so looking at the volatility index, all right, volatility, or not volatility, but the market, whatever day this was, broke up, back test 50 SMA trend, and then press to long. So essentially what we had on, oh, I should favorite that next time, but what we had on the market was No, I don't want to use that one. See, that one just doesn't look right. It's just weird. Anyways, so we had a back test of volatility and a back test of the market. So as the market decreases, goes to support, bounces support, and as the volatility index goes up, gets resistance, stays, and confirms volatility down, the market bounces, right? So if we even, I know it's 924, kind of, I might have to speed up some here, but anyways, gist of it is market is still in a buy signal, market is still in an uptrend. On Wednesday, you had the market pull back, but it did not break down. It stayed in an uptrend, right? So stayed in an uptrend. If we look at the QQQ went through a short-term sell move. So if you actually look at the QQQ, you'll see that the QQQ broke down. So what we got a lot of on Wednesday was more of a tech pullback. We'll just call it. It's not even necessarily guaranteed, but we had a QQQ pullback. So I know we did have a lot of, call it tech, some Fang, NVIDIA. So a lot of big name players decreased on the day, took the Qs down, allowed the volatility index to go up, confirmed that volatility still wanted down, etc. So really tech was used to pull back the market, and as a result, you got a VIX bounce, and it allowed the SPY to come down and test support, right? So that's kind of what I see taking place or took place on Wednesday of last week, and then kind of led through the rest of the week. All right, slip in here. All right. So again, right now we're still in a buy signal, and basically market is currently long-sided. Hasn't taken out its key volume shelf from the pre-market, so that's still kind of, it just basically means that the pre-market trend's still intact. So as we lead into the open, market is a long bias market, anything above 602.25. When I say that, that means market can still pull back into 602.25, then basically still remain in a higher low, higher high scenario from the pre-market session and into stock market open. Okay, so basically like that. Not necessarily a guarantee, obviously, but you get the point. Bitcoin. Good morning, Solo One. Yeah, so looking here at Bitcoin. Again, pretty much same scenarios has been for a while now. Bitcoin, we still have targets all the way into 120, what do we got? 120 something thousand. Actually, I think it updated this morning all the way up to potentially 131,000. All right, so if we flip this over to a weekly scale, right now the long targets we're really aiming for on Bitcoin are going to be here to 118,000 to 132,000 for the moment. Yeah, it's totally normal that we saw a red week put in on Bitcoin, and it totally would be normal if we had another red week. I was kind of expecting anywhere from 2 to maybe 3 red weeks here before the market really tries to go get a new all-time high on Bitcoin. So I think it's totally normal if we see Bitcoin pull back for this week, just like it did last week, maybe even another week. And this is all just based off of looking at past cycles and kind of timing up where we're at. Not is everything going to rhyme and repeat, perfectly. Good morning, Oris. Good morning, Solo One. But bottom line is the last time and the time before that, and I think the time before that, every time Bitcoin gets into this portion of its cycle, there's usually a pullback that minimum's been at least 1 red week, and then usually anywhere from 2 to 3 red weeks before it really gets picked up again. So far, we're on week 2. Well, starting week 2 of the red kind of pullback scenario. But literally every time we've been here, it's always pullback. Now, I know that sounds kind of like, it kind of sounds silly, but it's not every time we've been here, but I've noticed a similarity there. But anyway, it doesn't matter. All I'm saying is pretty likely we see some selling. It's okay. It's totally normal. Again, it's happened many, many times before in the past before getting picked up again. So totally normal. And then afterwards, we're still going to be looking for anywhere from like 100 and 100 118,000 to basically 132,000. And even that can change. Well, it will change. It's definitely going to change. It consistently repaints, and it repaints more so week after week, because we're on a weekly scale right now. But yeah, we could totally see Bitcoin update to, heck, maybe even 140,000 going into next week or something like that. Well, no, that would be too much. The market would really need a boost up for that, but a couple weeks it could. So yeah, everything's totally fine for Bitcoin in that regard. All right, slip back over here, pop back over to SPY, and I'm gonna take off this guy for the moment. What do I think about XRP? I could touch on XRP in a moment. All right, so markets is staying in the long right now. Again, we have no back test of the support, which is totally fine. That just means it's just forcing out on the long press, which is totally okay. Again, remember that the market stayed in a long signal from here, so that just basically means market's in a long, right? And it's going to stay long as it's, and that's a lot of longs, but it's just going to stay long as it's over this pre-market uptrend. You're not going to, until you take that out, you're not really stopping out volume. It's just long-sided. So it's either just up or first initial pullback, dip, 2, and then go. That's kind of what that means. Guess I'll put it up there. Nice, Chris. Glad to see you. Glad to see you. Yeah, at first couldn't get a stream to work for some reason. I wonder if we'll just keep it at that. But then I was able to get one to work, so not quite sure exactly what happened here. Oh yeah. Also, I kind of missed something here. My apologies. Kind of late to it. It's kind of a hard morning trying to get all these streams to work, but. Again, we probably got the long target here. We did. So you see how SPX has hit the 161? So that's always going to be, I don't want to say always, but that's first initial long target on the day for the SPX. So if I flip this to a 1 minute, it's been really quick. But basically, what we're doing is we're taking the overnight gap on the VIX, or sorry, the SPY. There's a lot of words going in my brain right now, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to take the SPX and we're going to take the overnight gap and we're going to measure that and we're going to consider that an impulsive move leading into today. And a lot of times the first destination we're going to look for on that gap for the SPX is going to be the 161. So the SPX has created or achieved today its first extension long target that we would look for. I was kind of slow this morning, so I didn't really get to mention it, but it's complete. Now, it only took 1 minute to do that. And again, that's because the market, we'll just call it algorithm, high frequency trading, whatever, so on and so forth. But yeah, so that's got its first long target, right, for the day. Doesn't mean it can't go more, things like that. I'm just saying it's a desirable spot for a long off a gap like that. Regarding the tax credit thing, not that I'm not that I know that system, not my area of expertise, but again, if I were to go about researching it, the first thing I would do is just basically figure out how much of the EV tax credit goes to Rivian, and to your question, yeah. How much of it goes to Rivian and Lucid, figure out how much of the EV tax credit is a part of their numbers or annual revenue, et cetera, and then if they were to get eliminated, you could basically figure out a worst case, and so on and so forth for how much is going to get taken off their books. So I don't know about it, but the process of elimination for me to figure out that information would really just come down to figuring out how much of that EV tax credit do they get, or just learning exactly how that whole reimbursement process actually works, the ins and outs of it, and then you could really come up with a good answer. So I don't know the answer, but that's the way I would go about figuring it out. So that's what it comes down to. How much of the EV tax credit, if eliminated, would harm them. So I would just first say you've got to figure out how much of it goes to them. That's all. That would be my best answer there. Yeah, just how you could use ChatGPT. Literally, I could probably figure the answer out like right now. 1 second, let's do that just for fun. Anyways, let me bring up my stuff here. 30-minute. Because just because we did not backtest trend support does not mean we won't at some point. So we're going to be looking. So it's about right there. So again, currently, any kind of failure pullback too still leads to about 602.59 today. I'm actually going to I'm going to copy and paste this. Let's see here. All right. Yeah, so let me just kind of jump into here. So right now the market's probably going for the 1 minute pullback. It's close, not quite. So a lot of times what we'll look for too, and it might shy it here today, we'll see, but ultimately once the market starts to kind of move in a direction for the day, you basically look for a pullback into the 1 minute trend and then look for the market to boost back up into a long in this scenario. And then if we fail the 1 minute trend, that's where a lot of times some speed can kind of pick up. So we'll just basically say from the start of market open, so on this first 1 minute candle with the SPY, the market's gone up. SPX has hit its 161 gap target. We're now basically pulling the market back down to the 1 minute trend. If we can hold support, you'll basically see another boost up, so on and so forth. And that's kind of that. And remember, it's like this is 1 minute, so, you know, if the 1 minute trend gets taken out, that's where 1 minute volatility picks up and rolls over, so on and so forth, right? But there's your pullback on the 1 minute scale to test the 1 minute long trend for the day. So now everyone who's bought in the SPY on the long side of the day, they're pretty much all red, right? There's almost nobody left in the market that's green on the day, because all we had was one big 1 minute candle up. So if anybody bought from the low, you'd have to buy the absolute low at market open. Anyone buying midway up and higher, they're all red now, right? So again, that's what the market likes to do. Go up and down and basically screw people over. So everyone who bought long, the market's now officially red. There's no way. Most likely, not everyone, but most of them, right? And then, yeah, if the 1 minute long starts to fail a bit, and maybe get a little bit more shaky, but again, normally this is the 1 minute over under a lot of times on the day. Do you hold and give a little pop? If not, psh, psh. All right, so you'll see. Okay, 1 second, Chris, because I actually might have a little more information on that. Let's see. Okay, so I mean, not that it's really all that amazing. Again, you can see the snap kind of taking place there just below 603.12. Nothing insane, but again, you can clearly see once you take out that 1 minute trend there a little bit, you're starting to see that little volatility pick back up, slam more. Arguably, this is where the market, it's not the easiest to take it down today, but again, this is one of those scenarios where I feel like we're not going to go ahead and get the 30-minute pullback right away. It's going to kind of stay up. This kind of has the vibe, that kind of feeling today, but we'll see. Let's check the 1 minute. That's all the way there. Yeah, I mean, yeah, do remember too, since the market pretty much bounced the 50 SMA back here and stayed long, again, that's another way of looking at it, that the market is entirely long bias over this red VWAP. Since the market's over this, there's not going to be a big reset on the market for the time being. So again, the market's in a buy signal. The buy signals started a couple weeks ago. Last week, Wednesday, it back tested, confirmed it still wanted up. So market's still in a buy signal entirely. So the only thing you can be short bias is just for small pullbacks, if anything. But that's pretty much it. There's not really much that's downtrending right now, other than little micro charts. But that's it, right? If you look at, if we look at kind of the other week, just last week, you had your correction and drop. But since then, market held support down here, and then pretty much just turned into higher lows so far. Which means, it can change at any time it wants to, but. Yeah, so doing a little more research into the tax credit scenario. So Rivian reported $4.43 billion last year in revenue for 2023. The EV tax credit doesn't really directly affect, I mean, it can, but yeah, it's not like it's not like a reimbursement to them, so it's a tax credit for people who go and buy electric, cars, and they may not even get the tax credit theoretically, or in theory. So anyways, it doesn't necessarily directly affect their revenue. The only thing that the removal of the tax credit can do is affect consumer bias of whether or not they want to purchase something because they maybe can or can no longer get the tax credit. So does it directly affect the revenue? In theory, no. But it can persuade people who may have wanted to buy one to not buy one because they won't get the tax credit. So, yeah. Yeah, again, guys, look at where, we're at. Remember that it's updated right now to about 602.63 to 602.64. Could put that little guy back on the screen. What are the VWAPs called? The VWAPs they're just VWAPs. They're anchored VWAPs, just a tool you can use on TradingView. And then I kind of created my own little names for them based off of, where things are getting anchored to. All right, so you see how we've moved down a little more. All right, so now it's kind of the VWAPs calculating down. So I still keep the old level there. So again, 602.64 down to about 602.55. Right in that area. And remember, there's still support down there. So this is simply just the market's pulling back for the moment. Till you get below these areas, you'll just see the market get picked up and like little support bounces down there a lot of times. So, yeah, again, still anything down into 602.63, 602.55 can basically still get kind of have these bounces to them. But yeah, the VWAPs are, again, just anchored VWAPs on TradingView. So yeah, that that EV tax credit thing, does it affect people really buying? I mean, again, that would you would have to go into more of the consumer psychology to really know, and I'm sure there's probably ways to figure that out too. I mean, you probably could there's probably surveys, like, I guarantee you could even find stuff on that. But ultimately, no, it doesn't actually affect their numbers directly. It first affects the psychology of a buyer because they don't get the credit anymore. So is it enough to persuade someone not to buy something? Maybe. Again, I'm not someone who really uses tax credits. I feel like for the ones that I've even looked into before is more of a pain than anything. So just it's kind of like I kind of feel like it's like a rebate situation, where it's maybe not the easiest to get it, but I know people do and many have. But it's kind of one of those things you got to jump through some hoops, I'm sure. So I don't think it's going to be the be all end all. If someone really wants an electric car, they're going to go get one. I can't imagine, a $7,500 tax credit preventing someone from saving the planet, Right? Like, if you're going to save the planet and you're going to save the world, you can't let $7,500 step in your way, right? That wouldn't be very world-savingly of you. So yeah, anyways, that's cool. That's good stuff. That's good. See, again, that's something I'm not sure of. I've never, I remember I was considering one for, what was I considering it for? Some mini splits, some efficient mini splits. I remember there being this tax credit thing you could do, and then the guy's like, but you gotta do this and that. I'm like, yeah, I'm not even gonna worry about it. So that's good to know. Have you, because I was going to say, because that's, says a federal electrical EV tax credit is designed to benefit consumers by reducing their tax liability when they purchase a qualifying EV. Traditionally, this credit does not directly reduce the vehicle's purchase price. Instead, eligible buyers claim the credit when filing their federal income taxes, effectively lowering their tax owed for that year. However, starting in 2024, the Inflation Reduction Act introduces a provision allowing consumers to transfer the EV tax credit to dealers at the point of sale. This means that eligible buyers can opt to have the credit applied immediately, reducing the vehicle's purchase price up front. The dealer then can claim it on the credit on their taxes. So there was a change in 2024. Yeah, not all dealerships may offer point-of-sale option as participation is voluntary. Therefore, consumers interested in this immediate benefit should confirm with the dealership where they provide the service. Additionally, eligibility. Interesting. I sound like a salesman for this now. It's funny. So yeah, no, they do, and it looks like there was a change in the Inflation Reduction Act, which is funny because if you ask me, that's more of like an inflation incretion, because if you can basically persuade people to go out and buy a car faster, that would actually make things inflate higher, versus making it harder to get the tax credit and persuading and basically pushing people out of buying something because maybe the tax credit is going to be more annoying to do. I got to do my taxes. Versus if I can go get the decrease right now, that's actually more inflationary. So it's just funny that it's actually really wouldn't help lower inflation. It could actually make things worse because it makes it easier for you to spend money in the economy or want to spend money faster in the economy. So it's actually kind of comical. It's good. But yeah, so like I said, I never really knew much about it. I started learning about it mainly today and how it operates. I mean, I knew it was there, but you know. So anyways, yeah, so that's kind of your first initial long bounce around. Not quite a live tag, but pretty good, pretty close. You know, again, we were kind of watching for potential pullback down there to about 602.64. We hit a low of 602.69, so off by about 5 cents from the initial kind of thought point. It's totally fine, totally normal. And so, yeah, again, the market's still over. When I say the market's still over support, I'm just meaning that the market is still supportive of all of the trend that's been created from the pre-market today. So all the movement from pre-market bottom into today, it's still being supported. It hasn't quite broken down. And that's pretty much it, you know. So it's like, even though we just had a pretty decent pullback on the market, again, you can see that clear as day, right? Market topped out, rolled over, right? We're still holding above it, so on and so forth. Arguably looks like we're going to go down and maybe even get a true live tag of it just based off the way the formation is. Again, you know, if you look at SPX, right, what do we do with SPX? SPX already hit its first initial long target for the day. So it's not like the market also didn't go up to a potential resistance or go up into a desirable area. It's done that, right? We achieved today's gap target on the SPX. It just happened in the first minute of trading. That was all, right? So in the first minute of trading from the open up to 161 was, you know, about almost 5 points. Well, we hit up about 5-7 points, whatever. Right? So you basically went up 5 points in the first 1 minute. And that same movement took you 5, 10, 12, 15 minutes down, right? So it's just the way it is for that scenario. Oh yeah, Crypto P, you may not be here anymore, but we could touch on XRP a little bit here in a sec. Yeah. Again, I'm just solely working off a trading view today. I don't even have open any other stuff, so I don't have all my tools at my disposal today, and that's okay. What's up with Bitcoin? Bitcoin pumped up again. Cool, not bad. SPY again rolling down, most likely towards support, if anything. Hasn't quite gotten it. Sometimes they'll shy it, but oh, what time is it? It's 9:53. So arguably there's still 7 minutes too. So it's like, if we're gonna hold basically trend support and actually continue kind of trending up and not really roll over, it's a good chance that comes within the next 30-minute candle. So the next 30-minute candle is probably going to be, I don't want to call it a big deal, but, you know, if we were to print a green candle off support, a lot of times it's going to happen on the next 30-minute candle, right? So you can almost think of it like market went up, markets come down on the 30-minute chart. We're coming into a 30-minute support. As we get there, the 1 minute and the 5-minute bounce. But if we're really going to hold 30-minute support, it's going to happen as we transition into the next 30-minute candle, which happens in the next 6 minutes. Okay. So again, if the pre-market trend is going to do its job, hold support, even for a little longer, whatever, you'd imagine it'd be more likely to kind of have some follow through or holding within the next 6 minutes, and as it transitions into the next candle. And it's also going to be the deciding factor whether or not we roll a little lower. I know it sounds dumb, but you'll get the point. Maybe you won't, maybe you will. I could probably find it for you last week. Maybe not. Let's see. No, not the greatest examples there. It's probably right here. Nah. Yeah, I guess there's really not any good examples I could show you that have been recent. All right, cool. Yeah, XRP. So I know there's always some news about something, but I know there's been some news recent. Oh, that's not what I want to look at. That's market cap XRP. Yeah, I do remember some news, something like that. I mean, obviously it's looking good. It's moving. As far as like, I haven't done a whole lot of research for price targets, things like that. But yes, I do know there was some news recently, XRP, and I think it's maybe getting clearance from the SEC. I'd have to look into it, but I was just reading a little bit of it the other day. I mean, the pattern looks great. When you look at it, it's going straight up. There's no downtrend start yet. I mean, you can literally look at the formation of it. Yeah, you could say maybe it's overbought, maybe it's this, maybe that, but the bottom line, I mean, it's not downtrending yet. It's still uptrending. I mean, even if we go to a 30-minute chart, it's not downtrending. 5-minute chart's not downtrending. A 1-minute chart's not even downtrending. So literally, it's just uptrending. Again, I don't really have much to go off of here with this. I mean, clearly what you're starting to see, obviously, in development is kind of a bigger, arguable bull flag, if you may. So, yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, I don't have much else to say on that. Dev Weekly. Yeah, I could look at that. Let's see. I don't really know where that's at currently. Let's see. Let me add it here. I would imagine it's probably, yeah, I would say it's probably getting pretty high just based off of what I already see here. So yeah, it's +3, +4. Doesn't mean it has to stop. Actually kind of means, there might have been some people that tried to short this in this area and now they're going to get squeezed. You can kind of see it right there, right? You see how I just added those two lines, right? You kind of already see how I don't want to say we went through the first and just squeezed out, but really just went straight up into +4. Hard rejection, lower high attempt, right? And then poof, just basically took them out right there. Yeah, again, I don't know enough of the fundamentals behind it, but as far as the technicals go, I mean, it's still in an uptrend, hasn't given up. I still think Bitcoin's going to go higher. If you also look at the Bitcoin dominance chart right now, we know that the Bitcoin dominance has been going down, so therefore you've kind of entered the alternative cryptocurrency, environment for those to start running. So that's another thing you should kind of be watching is the BTC.D chart, and basically as long as this stays in a downtrend and performs its down, or let me rephrase that, more of pulling back, right? So for as long as this remains red and kind of has a decrease, you're more likely to see better performance on your altcoins. So that's something I'll also pay attention to, BTC.D. And as long as that's kind of performing okay, to the downside, that is, then your alternative coins will do better. And we still have probably about 100 to 300 days left on what I believe is the Bitcoin bull market for the moment. So, I don't expect Bitcoin to really top out anytime soon. I still think we have more than 3 months, right? Because 3 months would be 90. So a little more than 3 months, I think we should basically be like, things are okay for at least 3 months on Bitcoin. Up to just a little less than a year. So I know it's a little bit of a wide window, but I think 3 months time, there isn't going to be anything too serious on Bitcoin as far as pullbacks. Once we get into there, then maybe we start to see some more aggressive pulling back that maybe leads to a top of Bitcoin, and then a bear market maybe starts. We'll see. Bitcoin maxis will hate me for saying that, but, you know, we'll see. All right, we'll pop back into the old little Bitcoin guy, or Bitcoin. I meant SPY. Zoom in, get in there. Come on, baby. Alrighty, here we go. Okay, so you see how basically the market just went. You see that? You guys see that? I know we weren't looking at it, but you see how, not that we needed to, but you see how the market kind of came down into the little emoji phase in between the yellow box. We even adjusted the VWAP down a little bit, so then that really tells me we have support levels down as low as there now. And then, so essentially, we basically just come down into, you know, the yellow, and then you kind of pop as the market transitions to that next 30-minute candle, because that's kind of coming down into 30-minute support, so the follow-through a lot of times can be into the next 30-minute candle. So as the market transitioned into the next 30-minute candle, which starts at 10 o'clock, you will see that that's where that that kind of boost is taking place. So pretty common stuff there. And that doesn't mean the market's just going to blast off and rip faces all day. It's just, you know, move into support from the 30-minute scale as the market transitioned into the next 30-minute candle. Just pop a little bit. Because it's 30-minute support, transition into 30-minute candle. On that note, I will be right back. I'm going to get a refill on coffee. But, yeah, I'll be back. Good, or I was gonna say good morning, but it's more like I'm back. Hello, hello. It's kind of annoying not having the full setup. I just can't get as good a read on everything, unfortunately. Yeah, I'm working with less platforms open. It seemed that helped my stream. Yeah, because basically when I was operating, you know, all the stuff I would normally operate on my computer this morning, my stream wouldn't work. So then I'm like, well, that's annoying. So then I basically restarted everything and just opened up one web browser for this, and it worked. So I'm like, I guess we're just gonna operate like this today. So I can't see a lot of the stuff that I would use to look at the market right now. So it's kind of a bummer, right? But it's okay. I'm gonna take this off. Don't want it on. So, okay, so you can tell that a lot of the tech stuff is doing good. Look at QQQ just absolutely booming. Doing very well there. Front running markets. So, like, this is a day where I would tell you guys that, like, the market internals are running exceptionally well. I don't know what those would be on here. I don't even want to try. Yeah. But anyways, this is a day where I would probably say to you, if I had them up, that, you know, the Fang names are running well. So let's see. Obviously, Apple's up, Nvidia's up, Microsoft up, Google up, Amazon up, Meta up, right? So your Fang names are running right now and doing really well. Netflix is up, Tesla is up, or kind of up, then down. Actually, speaking of. What scam is that? I mean, if it's this, I don't know what I'm not sure if this is the right ticker or not, but you know, I really don't know. I don't know enough about the stock. Don't really know enough about Wolf. Not something I pay close enough attention to that I feel really comfortable on really talking about. The only thing I would say is just look for uptrend, downtrend. ASTS, huh? Ooh, that is hot. Put that down there. Yeah. They are a ASTS. They're a satellite mobile company. Nice. Yeah, again, even still, I mean, I don't know if you're referring to ASTS or Wolf, but again, still, I would have to. I mean, if I was really going to give an opinion on it, you got to look into the books and how much money they make and how many customers they have, and you know, that's the reality of it. You know, if I was really going to give a take on that. Yeah. Anyways, again, not a whole lot to say here, other than again, the market's just still in a buy signal. We're holding our pre-market support on the SPY. The QQQ is performing well because obviously its underlying equities are performing well. This isn't, you know, necessarily a selling market for the moment. When that changes, maybe it changes, but for the time being, it has not. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to see the VIX though? So yeah, I'll probably be streaming just through the remainder of this week, and then after that, I'll be back working in our private room. Obviously, if you guys want to join that, feel free to do so. There's a link in the description. It'll take you to the website. But yeah, I'll at least be here for remainder of the week doing this. Again, this is kind of a scenario today too where you need the QQQ to finally get a little bit of weakness there, and then you'll start to then it again, if the QQQ sees some weakness, that can help pull the SPY and so on and so forth. I wonder. Let's see. Let's see if this goofs up my stream. If so, we'll see. If it does, then so be it. All right, hopefully the stream doesn't shut off, but you never know. You never know with this setup, right? Yeah. Okay. Yep, kind of as expected. All right, so if we, again, we'll just pull this over real quick. And so we'll bring this up. This is the Fang names, right? So you can see Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, Google all combined into one. You can clearly see that they're just basically going straight up for the day. You look back, pull back the curtain, there's your QQQ pretty much going straight up for the day. Pretty straightforward. All right, and then we'll take a look over here at the SPY. So we can see here with the SPY, SPY issues. I won't say SPY, but the issues on the SPY have pretty much just gone straight down for the day. That's actually kind of interesting. There's a gap in those. So I wonder if we're going to take the SPY issues back up on the day to go fill this. Well, that's only a 1 minute. Let's just make sure it's on 5. Nah, it's not there. But probably still decently important, right? How often is that? I don't see that as often, but so that's kind of interesting. Got a little gap there on the SPY issues, but don't put too much emphasis on that. But anyways, you can see SPY issues pretty much straight down, right? So we go pull back this, take a little look at the SPY. What do you see with the SPY issues? Not that they're going, or the SPY market, not that it's going straight down, but it has pulled back, right? So currently, you know, the S&P 500 has a lot of 500, right? Majority are going down, right? So you've pulled the SPY down today, right? Now, if you look at a couple of the other markets here, NASDAQ issues down, right? NASDAQ 100 issues down. NYSE issues down, right? But a lot of those big tech guys are coming back up, right? So it's a pretty clear distinction that this morning, you know, you have your SPYs lagging, NYSE lagging a little bit, the Fang names. So if we can, I mean, arguably, if we start to turn around some of the NYSE, NASDAQ, and SPY issues, then you'll start to see this market, you know, kind of recover and start to lead and go back up with the Qs. Vice versa, if you really start getting some weakness across the Fang names, that's what's going to top the market on the Qs. So really, you just basically have the Fang guys just crushing today, which is leading the QQQ out on an explosive move. And it's pretty identifiable from this 6 chart screen here. Again, you don't have a lot performing on the SPY, NASDAQ, NASDAQ 100 or at the NYSE. It's mainly just like Fang. That's pretty much what's leading this move up on the Qs there. So if at any point you start seeing some weakness on those guys, it'll help top the market, things like that. And when I say top the market, it's not like you're looking for the market to top. You just know that if you start getting weakness across those guys, it's going to slow that move down. So again, it's not you're looking to top the market. You just know, since those are what's moving it up, those are what's going to stop the move, if it's going to stop, right? So you'd first have to see something like that. I know this doesn't look like a whole lot on the screen. My apologies. I know it's kind of like meh, but let's double check something here. Got it. Yeah, I know it doesn't really look like a whole lot there on the screen, but again, I'll take off these lines. Those were just used as reference points earlier, right? And you know, now when I take this off, all it's going to look like is this morning we had a gap down in the market, then the market got bought up into a strong bullish trend, and then leading into the open, the market popped, chased down the SPX 161, pulled back, trend support, bounce, new 30-minute candle, green. So it just tells us that the long bias trend from this morning pre-market is still intact and just holding to the upside. That's it. So amongst all those other little things that have happened, realistic to me, what I see is, again, we just really had the market press from the pre-market into the open, pull back to trend support created from pre-market, and then just stayed long. And if you look at like a 1 minute, probably like a 1 minute, right? If you look at a 1 minute, you can kind of see. So we'll just call this down here the pre-market support zone. We'll call this pre-market support, right? Okay, so you pretty much had, this market go long into the open, pull back to pre-market trend support, and you can see that it's bounced a bit, and it hasn't created like a rolling breakdown, right? You can see from the pre-market system, right? Now, if you would have started snapping this, then the chart could have been looking more like, say, like that, right? But you're still holding it. So, this is where a lot of times the market will try to lower high and bring it down, but I just don't think that's gonna work, but we'll see. Maybe. I'm not saying it can't, but if we're going to do any sort of rolling there on the SPY, the big names got to turn around, and the issues on the SPY would most likely need to be bearish. Right now, the issues on the SPY are actually performing slightly bullish. Same with the NASDAQ 100, and I think even the NYSE. They're kind of coming back up positive. So there's a couple things there. That being said, the major market cap players are going to be your Fang names. So if those get a little toppy, it's going to prevent this SPY move most likely from continuing to the upside for the moment. Oh yeah, it felt great. All right, so we just got our first little sell move on the Fang names. I guess not really. I guess we kind of had one back here. That's my apology. That's kind of false, but we did just go back to a little bit of a negative cross there, so it's nothing crazy. They've been pretty strong this morning. We even had one here, but it kind of shook it off. So we do get that occasionally where the 1 minute MAC won't really do a whole lot of justice. And this pretty much just triggered a squeeze kind of situation. But it's pretty decent tool. Pretty effective. Oh, what is the VIX doing? VIX 15. All right. Yeah, I mean, and even still, the VIX is still below $14.10. So the VIX really doesn't have any volatility to it. So that's another thing too, is like you're not really looking for the market to just roll over and die today, because again, there's no reason for it. The volatility index doesn't suggest it. So the market really would just have to roll over and die on its own today to basically increase volatility. Volatility is not increasing in a manner that volatility will trigger a sell move on the market. The market just has to for whatever reason, die on its own and then increase volatility. So right now, volatility is, again, not suggesting the market's just going to die. The market just basically has to do that on its own today. And nothing that I see so far is really kind of triggering such an environment. I probably should do that. Hold on one second. We need to just double check something real quick. The 1 minute looks kind of shisty there, though. We're not quite there yet. Yeah, I mean, no. Again, the market's going to do anything down. It's just got to kind of do it on its own. It hasn't really triggered anything yet. We do kind of have this lower low, lower high across the 1 minute here, but again, that's really nothing too crazy. Again, you're not, I mean, nothing really triggering anything for the moment. Again, unless the VIX is over $14.08, it's just I don't think we're gonna see like anything real crazy down. I mean, like that's just it. It's not even that you're trying to see. It's not you're trying to see anything down. It's just, is there something that would derail the long move currently? And I don't really see anything that's gonna derail the market's long bias trend for the moment, unless the market just has something up its sleeve and then just goes like down. But volatility is not suggesting it. Where'd it go? Yeah, volatility isn't suggesting like downside. The market internals are no longer suggesting really pullback. That could change, but they've gone from sell off to slight bounce. So if the bounce gets shaken off, then maybe, but right now that's not the case. The bounce is holding. And your Fang names are still holding relatively okay. So, I mean, it's just still a little dip long scenario, I guess. Now, until we start to get below, like I might change slight bias on that if we were actually giving up trend support, but we're not. Again, if we look at the, and that's all like on intraday stuff too. If we look at from the pre-market to today, right, if I just delete that real quick, you know, anything over the yellow line can still be, you know, basically traded up as bullish and held up as bullish. So, you know, you can think of it that the pre-market long is still intact, right? You haven't even stopped out pre-market traders, or volume for that matter. Maybe some, but most of that trend still predominantly to the upside. You know, I guess another good way of explaining this too would be like, let's go to this day here, and we'll take this high candle, and we'll anchor it like that on the high, and then we'll take this guy here, and we'll do like this rollover. It's about the same, maybe even this guy. All right, so this is where on this day, see how the market rolled over? I would basically like have some targets up here like this. So watch this. We'll go back to this day. This is a decent example, just on the opposite side. All right, so on this day, the market was upside, and then it rolled over and died off. So it kind of had a bearish trend down here. Now, though the market pre-market here kind of was rolling over and it was bearish while still in an uptrend, right? So if we flip this real quick to a regular trading hours chart, remember that the box down here, so this box would be market is long bias over the 50 SMA. So the market got picked up on a long and is moving long. And then on that day, so the market gets picked up long and is moving long. This is just a pullback in a long bias trend, right? So on the day and on the pre-market of that day, we created some over-under points from the pre-market system at about the price of 646, 635. Okay. And so if we flip this down to like a 1 minute and we go into this day, right here, okay, the story would basically be, 1 second, let me take these off here. We would say, hey guys, market's been down pre-market, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. So as long as the market maintains below these, then the market could still kind of have a pullback. But once you get above that, you'll start to essentially take out all of the people that were bearish or short from the pre-market. They'll be underwater. So the first counter trend would be back up to here and then continuation above, right? So this is where I would put that little, just like we did today, how I had this little spyglass right there, we put it right there. All right. And then just like today, when we go into today's pre-market session, we will do this. We'll flip this back to a 30-minute so you can see where that line's at. So the line's about right there. And then that's where I would say, hey guys, we have the over-under support down right here. As long as we are above that, it is dip to long, right? So the market can pull all the way down to here and still stay long. And that's what you're kind of seeing right now. You're kind of seeing like a flag setup, right? You kind of went from down to reversal, long, and now the market's making a flag here. Kind of like that. So, and you can kind of see too, is like as we came into this small little whatever micro flag kind of jazz, right? What are the market internals doing? So when we look at the market internals, you can see what's going on here with the SPY issues. Not that it hasn't been very much, but the SPY issues have been kind of holding and grinding up. NASDAQ issues holding, grinding up. NASDAQ 100 holding, grinding up. And then down here on the bottom left is the NYSE is holding up. The only thing that's kind of slowed is arguably those Fang names. Some of them, not all of them, but you can kind of see they've slowed a bit. Then they were grinding up, really pressing. Now they've kind of gone pull back to sideways a bit. So there's kind of like that slight difference there. But you can see as this flat, like you think about it, right? As that like flag looking pattern is kind of curling up in the market and the dips they keep coming up, you know, regardless of what pattern you're seeing on the SPY, you can look behind the market internals. You can see that those are clearly, some of those issues are bouncing and they're getting bought on the long side there a little bit. Nothing crazy though. Oh, and then side note too, if we take the high, we're probably just, see how we're just coming through the high of day volume weighted average price trend. So you can kind of see how we took the high and then used the sell move from the high to create the lower highs in the down move, right? So that's another tactic that you'll see quite often, is highs and lows on the day, and then basically market making the lower highs below such level, right? So a lot of times where someone might take and like draw a trend line and be like, okay, so the market is creating lower highs here, so I'm gonna draw a trend line like that. More or less, we will put a volume weighted average price on the high or the low of a move, and then basically expect that that's where those trend tops will be put in. So it's less of taking a trend line and drawing it over what's happened, and it's more of putting a volume weighted average price at a key level and knowing that there's a good chance that that's where lower highs will develop. There's a lot of different tactics you can use for the market. Teachable, I mean, it's still active. There's still a lot of old courses and people have access to them and so on and so forth. So it's still active. It's just not really actively promoted much. Really, nothing really is these days. But yeah, it's still active. So, like in this situation, we're basically taking out the volume weighted average price from the top down. A lot of times this is where we're going to go and get the upper distribution level. So, and it hasn't quite happened. It's not always a perfect system. But see, like in this situation, right, if we take all of the volume that's traded from the high, right, and down, we have been lower low, below it, and then as we get above it, a lot of times it will try to get up to about that purple line on the micro. It's not that it's a big move, it's just kind of a common thing you'll see going from the middle to the upper, and you can almost guarantee that everyone that's been bearish this move is most likely out right here, because again, most people did not short the high, right? So if you think about it, most people didn't short the high, most people probably didn't short this. Obviously, as things start to go down, more people would be likely to short, right? Maybe they short a lower high, right, as things are developing, and so their average price is here. So most people that were short high, and then throughout this, they're all stopped out. And there's your upper distribution tag, so you can see right here, doink, doink. So there's your upper distribution. That's a pretty common thing, and there could be like a little 1 minute pullback here, pretty normal. But again, you can it's clear as day, right? Down, lower high, lower high, lower high, push through, upper distribution, boom. And so now we're probably going to the 5 minute structure, right? So there's your 5 minute structure. All right, so running up to the high of the 5 minute, so on and so forth. No, I just deleted it on accident, my bad, sorry. Get off, come on. There we go. Now I got a bunch of dumb drawings on here, I always do that. Anyways, pretty straightforward stuff. Maybe not really straightforward, but So yeah, so there's your SPY staying long, just as we suggested and recommended. There's no sell move. Well, there was, but the sell move was where? The sell move was back to trend support over under, but no breakdown, right? Because there's no reason for the market to break down quite yet. Volatility does not suggest the market should be breaking down. So unless the market's just going to do it on its own, which it hadn't, right? Because the over-under is right here. At least one of them that we would look at was right there. And unless the market is below here, where I'm circling, then the pre-market long is still intact. And it's a higher low dip continuation from the pre-market long setup. So what we got this morning was, again, most people in the market today did not buy this low pre-market. They probably didn't buy here, but they may have started waking up around 8, 9, and then right where it got all shitty and trappy. That's probably where most people woke up pre-market and were dilly-dallying, right? And then most people maybe chased this long up out of the gates, right? So this pullback here most likely would have stopped out everyone from the open, everyone here, and most likely everyone here, and got a good portion of the market out today on that pullback, right? And I just drew a bunch of random drawings again. So, but the market staying positive just has to stay, over that 602.48, and it's changed a little bit. The levels were a little higher than that. I'm not going to take credit and say like this is perfectly it, but we had levels like right about there and so on and so forth. So, but yeah, so market's just doing what it's doing, staying in the long side. And again, if you look at the market internals here, what do we got on the market internals, guys? So we have the market internals went from sell to bounce. So again, I can zoom in here. So on the NASDAQ, down, long, right? SPY, down, back to long. We also have that 1 minute gap fill on the issues, which was kind of one of those other things that was maybe leading me that we would definitely want to be watching for bounce long. Is if you look at the SPY issues, there's a gap in price action here, which it's not a guarantee, but we can see basically right where that little, you guys can't hardly see that. I'll just put a line here. So that yellow line up to there would be the gap fill in that chart. So whether it does it or doesn't is another story, but interesting nonetheless. So yeah, there's that. Not too shabby. So let's see what the QQQ is doing. QQQ is still hanging out. Definitely slowing down a bit there on the Qs, and that's again, it's still trending up a bit, but slowing down, right? So the Fang name have slowed down, but the NASDAQ and NASDAQ 100 are kind of picking up a little bit. So you can see how it's slowed its aggressive move up, a little pullback, a little grind back. Again, it's usually the market internals do a really good job at explaining the story. It's very rare that you're going to see the market diverging market internals, but when you do, then a lot of times you can tell yourself there's a pretty good setup on the horizon. Like if the market was going straight up, but every single market internal was down, it just doesn't make sense. The market would correct in that scenario. In a good way of saying that, think about it this way. It's much easier for so again, say the SPY and the NASDAQ were just going straight up on the day, but you looked and you saw that all the market internals were just going down. It's much easier to correct the NASDAQ and the SPY in that moment, just pull one of those back, than it would be to reverse all of the equities across the markets, right? So again, if say SPY and QQQ were going up, but then you looked and literally all market internals are down, it's like, well, that doesn't make sense. But what would be easier in that moment to do? Top and reverse the SPY or the QQQ, or reverse Apple, Facebook, Amazon, and all of the stocks across the S&P 500, NYSE, NAT. You know what I'm saying? So it would be much easier to correct those two than it would be to make everything else move back up so that it makes sense, right? It would be easier to correct those markets than it would be to correct everything else in that same pattern. So on those days when you see those instances, which are not as common, then there's a lot of times a pretty decent setup there, or conviction maybe is a better way of saying it. Bitcoin, cool, going up. Again, we still got targets on Bitcoin into the 100 and arguably up to 130,000. So 118 to 130,000. Still think we got about 100 days left on the bull market to 300 days left on the bull market, give or take. I think Jim Cramer inverse Cramered everyone this time around. I know he came on, maybe it was live television, something about buy Bitcoin, it's a winner, which threw a little scare into the market. But this is, in my opinion, it's an inverse Cramer moment. I've seen him a couple times where, again, I just think it's an inverse Cramer moment personally. And I think it was very strategically planned. The inverse Cramer, very strategically planned, right? come in, get most people nervous about Bitcoin, right about 100K. Everybody knows inverse Kramer, but there are moments where they pull the inverse, and right now would be the perfect time to do it. So I think they pulled an inverse Kramer on everyone personally. Apple just cooking. I mean, yeah, a lot of those Fang guys really picked up today. Let's go check out our good friend MSTR. What is it doing? Struggling some. Oh, that was good. We should pull that up real quick, just for good old time's sake. Hold on, guys. Just gonna go on to handy dandy Twitter real quick. Limited time offer. Get 40% off premium this Thanksgiving for... Bro, what? Hold on. Something doesn't seem right. 2002. Wait a second. I don't know, something seems sketchy there. I don't know. Anyways. This was a good one. Right here. You guys might be able to see this. I don't know. Maybe I can increase it a bit. There you go. I don't know what day this was. This was on November 20th. So when MSTR first reached 477, you can see we marked off 477 and 554. MSTR is +3, +4 standard deviation zone. Basically, MSTR is into resistance areas. That being said, with Bitcoin targeting 111, 123K now, it's very possible MSTR shorts will trap themselves up here. So I was still kind of on the fence that whatever short move came in here, whatever top came in here, would eventually get blown back out. So far, it hasn't happened. We'll see if it does. But, you know, that's pretty much it. I do think if we do blow up Bitcoin back to like 100, like up to like 130K, I think we'll see a scenario maybe where we squeeze out the shorts on MSTR. We'll see. A lot of times stocks will top here, but anyways, either way, shorts have won for the moment. But anyways, yeah. So MSTR +3, +4. So pretty much this thing's just going straight up. No top in sight. We mark off 477.75, 554.24, basically suggesting that's going to be the top area for the moment as you're coming into resistance. So 477.75 would be here, basically right there. 477.75, and then what was the other one? 554. 554 would be right here. All right, so that's the resistance zone. All right, so you can see MSTR has ran up into, and I'll mark them here, +3, +4. MSTR has run up into +3 or +4. That's when we say, hey, we're basically into resistance. Here's your top. Drops 30% one day. Counter bounce. Roll down. Move. Little maybe higher low attempt, but pretty much that's your top for now, right? So the only way you're really squeezing out shorts is arguably by coming up through that zone, right? Because that's where the +3, +4 sigma top's been put in. So if you're really going to squeeze out the shorts, you're going to need to go through that. Bitcoin's had some days where it's going up. MSTR is not getting as much love anymore. But yeah, you're going to need a scenario probably where Bitcoin goes up to the 130,000 mark, and you'll see this rally back up, something like that. Actually, what would also be probably pretty interesting here is tracking the short so far. Okay. So also too, if we look at the short that's come in, so if we go to the tippy top, so basically we'll just call that where the algorithms turn to bearish. You know, you can pretty much see, here's your sell move down, bounce, remain below. So right now, the volume level from the short that's been put on for MSTR, it's still intact in my opinion. Still holding pretty good. Double check something else. Yeah. Whoa, don't want to do that. Okay, everybody. Okay, how's everybody doing? Everybody's doing good. Why is everyone doing good? Because everyone here knows that it's just a long bias market. Meanwhile, while half the planet's still trying to figure out long or short, we've just suggested be long. And obviously that's going to eventually fail, and you know, I can't really be like, oh yeah, but you know, again, it's pretty straightforward, and it's not necessarily easy, but it's straightforward. Ready? The market went positive over the 50 SMA here. On Wednesday, we said watch long bias, basically be long, and you're long as long as it's over the 50 SMA. It stayed over 50 SMA, and now you're up here. So essentially on Wednesday, we said get long at basically literally the bottom, 597.24. The market is now up $6 a share since then. To put it more simply, market's over the 50 SMA. Is the market below the 50 SMA? No, then the market is in a buying operation. Stay long the market. It can have pullbacks, but as long as the market trend is positive, all dips can still get bought. So until the market goes into a selling operation or the volatility index, as we mentioned a little earlier, until the volatility index triggers anything that suggests the market should go down, then the market stays up, right? So right now we're not in a selling operation on the market, which means downtrend or attempted selling. The volatility index is not in any sort of meaningful uptrend that would then trigger the market to get spooked and sell off. So volatility is not triggering anything. Market currently isn't triggering anything. So the market just has to roll over on its own accord for the moment for something to really take place. And that's not something you really try to mess with too often. So no downtrend on the market, no uptrend on volatility. The market's just maintaining in a buy operation. And then you'll have your little pullbacks and stuff in between, which we've already seen today. You know, there's been a decent amount of movement. Again, market's just positive. Just positive. And if this would ever get back to where it's supposed to be, it'd be great. So again, now kind of another thing, I don't want to say another thing you're paying attention to, but I already, I didn't put it on the chart, but it's okay. So once the market bounced off lows, another good thing you could watch would have been this, which I didn't add it for us, but it's always in the back of my mind. You know, it's kind of hard to get everything with how much we're covering, but so again, just like this. So once the market had bottomed on the lows here, so came into 30-minute support, reverse, you can add an anchor to that low, and you can pretty much watch for 1 and 5-minute support trend to the upside as well. So that's another tactic you can follow. So same thing we did on, you know, kind of the short side for a moment there, right, where we anchor to the high. And that's what we use to kind of track the lower high down, and eventually reversed it. Same concept here. Now we're just looking at things from the low. All right, so pretty much everyone who got long from low a day, their average share price, not really, but we know that anything below there, most everyone who bought this low would be stopped out for the day. So a lot of times that's the trend that they're going to want to hold for the moment. But anyways, you guys get the point. Nothing too crazy. Nothing's ever too crazy. Looks like the QQQ is getting some weakness here. Big candle here on the market. All right, so kind of, I would say maybe the first kind of little sign of something there for the Fang names, right? You can kind of see the Fang put in a pretty decent red candle here, so you just pretty much cook the market for a second. Oh, I should probably, hold on. Let's just double check. I'm gonna double check this real fast. So this is now basically 119,000. It's 132,000 now. So I will have to send out an update to Twitter. Alright, so we are making, and I'll even put a little Bitcoin long target update is now long targets updated. That's better. 119,000 to 100 and let's say 132,000, even though it's probably going to update, but 132,000. Yep. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, still just targeting up 119, 130,000. Again, you know, what's going to end up happening is this is going to change. Like right now it's 119 to 133,000 or so, 132. But you know, as this continues to go up, these are going to update a little higher. So, you know, for every day that we press up and every week we press up and don't hit those targets, these keep going up, right? So even though they're 119, 132 right now, you know, they can go higher. Speaking of, let's see, what's Ethereum doing? Yeah, but well, Ethereum's hit our first initial long target, so that puts this up. Let's see, about about a 50% return from our last suggested long on Ethereum, which, let's see. Ethereum, Twitter. Dang it, that's not gonna work. I'm looking for this Ethereum stuff. Ah, there it goes. So that was on 9/19/24. 9/19/24. Aha, there we go. Sorry, peoples, that was took a while. I just want to come out here and put this up because obviously. All right, so this was back on. I don't even know, when was this? Don't really know, but it had to be close to September 19th, around there, yeah. Ethereum is on support right now. It's a low risk buy point right now. I trust Bitcoin more, but if you're looking for a low risk spot for Ethereum, here it is. Don't shoot the messenger, which basically was, as it was 2004, 76.98. We missed our buy point by a couple hundred. That yellow line was the buy point, but anyways, 2004.76. All right, so that's where our last suggested low risk long entry would be for whatever it's called, Ethereum. And here we are now. So we were a little early in terms of the move, but our projection was to bring the market basically to where it's at now. So that's about a 54% move so far. In the fact that we expect Bitcoin to go up to, well, at least, 118, 120,000 now. That should, I would assume, drive Ethereum even higher. So 54% was kind of the main desired long point we wanted to get to within, current structure. Anything above that's bonus around at this point. So I think there's still room for Ethereum, but again, it's going to be built off the back of Bitcoin continuing higher and the altcoin season continuing its move. But anyways, that's for those that are curious or wanting to know. That would be the first desired long press for Ethereum at 54% return. Now you kind of need to get obviously through. Once you're through $3,800, you'll start to really squeeze out, I think, the next batch of people on Ethereum. All right, let's bring this back up. What's going on? So yeah, currently the SPY is basically just still sitting over support, holding support. All right, so you can see there. See how essentially taking the pre-market low system, we have the over/under right now is at 602.48. So market right now is still above support from the pre-market system. Does that change? We'll see. But yeah. But again, do remember that pretty much everything that's been the long side of the market so far, from the pre-market into today, again, it's got an over/under right there, that big yellow spot. Hence why you can see why we pushed up, bottomed, continued, rolled down to that level, and now kind of holding the bottom again. So now you're kind of doing like a slight little double bottom attempt. And that's mainly because, most people that would look at a pattern or something would say, oh, it bounced here before, so a little bit of support, something like that. So let's see, did anything happen with volatility? Nope, nothing's happened with volatility. So again, volatility is not moving in a way yet, broken any sort of key level that would suggest the market just wants to roll over and die for the moment, that is. That being said, I'm sure if we look at the market internals, they're probably moving in such a way. Again, you're kind of having a correction on your Fang names a little bit, and your bounce on the SPY issues and pretty much everything else is slowed down. You can pretty much see that, right? Issues here, down, issues here, down, issues here, rolling, issues here, rolling. So the market essentially has started rolling bearish on issues, right? Now we're coming into the pre-market over-under. So again, this is a lot of times where you'll see some stop out for anyone who's been long biased the market today. We'll see. Still kind of early, but we're flirting with it. Whoa, I don't do that. Again, you can still see we're basically just chilling, supporting the pre-market low. I don't want to say pre-market low, but look at that. You see that? I mean, you can see it's clear as day, right? Go from a pre-market low up. So we're coming into the volume-weighted average price of today's pre-market system. Well, of the pre-market today. Yeah. Oh, what's up, Mark? Mark Zuck. Again, right now, market's still over support from the pre-market. Hasn't broken it down quite yet. Interesting. It's funny, man. Friday really was the day for the market. Just no one was here. Obvious pump. I've seen that quite a few times right after Thanksgiving. I feel like they always pump the market after Thanksgiving, or like a day where they know no one's going to be around. They always do a little pump. Well, anyways, I think that's a good spot to end the stream for today. I mean, pretty straightforward, right? Market is still over support. I know it's hard for people to believe, but it's true. Support right now, again, about 602.49. That's the over-under. The pre-market long and the pre-market volume are still intact, even with that pullback off highs. There's been no breakdown of that yet. The volatility index hasn't signaled that the market should really be all that bearish yet. So until that changes, I guess it hasn't changed. But yeah, I guess that's probably where I end it. I will be back on tomorrow as long as the stream operates okay. And then, yeah, so catch you guys back tomorrow. Don't do anything too crazy, and I'll see you in the morning.